Hey guys, in this time I'm gonna explain you a little bit about Kali. It's nothing fancy, nothing new. It's just our effort so that you guys know, in case that you never know before, this specific Linux distribution, since we're gonna be using it heavily during our labs. So first of all, what is Kali Linux? Well, it is a penetration testing Linux distribution. It is created by Offensive Security team. It is a really awesome distribution. Mainly, it has a repository of multiple tools so that security-related engineers can use them in their engagements. You can find tools for hacking web wireless, hacking web applications, for reverse engineers, for database hackers, for security auditors, for forensic guys, for password crackers. I mean, it is an arsenal of tools that we will take a look later. But it is pretty cool. It is very recommended because that way you can find tools that you probably didn't know before, or tools that sometimes are hard to configure. Let's talk about, let's say, a wireless specific driver from a specific network card that it is difficult to install. Well, those guys have put a lot of effort in order to configure those drivers in order for you to have ready that specific testing. And that's just one example. That's the effort behind Offensive Security. They put a lot of effort configuring this specific Linux distribution so that everyone who is able to use it, they can get those benefits. They don't need to take too much time trying to install other stuffs. You can go to Kali Linux downloads from Offensive Security. You can see that they provide already virtual machine options in 32 bits and 64 bits. So you can just download it. It is really big, so I'm not gonna do that right now. But also it's pretty cool because they also have images for other architecture. In this case, ARM images, which is kind of smaller architectures for phones, like Android phones. So you can see here that they have Raspberry and many other architectures related to ARM, Samsung Chromebook, and all of those. So once you download it, you just place it into your local directory, and you will need either virtual VMware licensed to run it, or VMware Player, which is free. So you can just easily go to VMware. You just search for VMware Player download, and then you can just pick the first one. And basically, I mean, this is something that you guys already know, but you just click on VMware Player, and eventually you will have those links. You just need to download VMware Player and be ready to start using this specific image. Once you have it, the next thing you need to do is you need to run VMware. In my case, I have VMware, so I'm going to explain you that process. You just go to File, Open, and then you search for your specific Kali version. I have it here already. You go to your folder where you download the image. By the way, the image comes with 7-zip. 7-zip is like a zip compressor. You just need to download a software which is able to open 7-zip, like WinRAR. I think that's able to handle it. And you just decompress it into your folder, in my case right here, and when you open it with VMware, it will be able to recognize your VMware virtual machine configuration file, which is this in blue. You just double click on it, and finally here you have all the configuration already set up by this specific image. You can see that it has a certain memory amount, processor, hard disk, and network adapter, all those things. And at the bottom you can see it says Kali Linux 1, login as root, and password Tor. By the way, this Kali Linux change. Usually these guys are updating the images and changing the version, adding more drivers, adding more tools. I want to just quickly talk about the network adapter. This is very important for you as a penetration tester or security reviewer. Here you have mainly three options. Host only, that means that your network is gonna be just local. You can talk between VMs and even with the host. And I'm gonna do a stop here. We have in these virtual environment scenarios, we have a host and a guest. When we talk about the host, that's the operating system running the machine, the hardware behind. And when we talk about the guest, that's the operating system running on top of the host machine. In our case, Kali, since it is running inside the virtual machine, that's our guest OS. And our host OS is my Windows system. So here in the host only, that means that Kali, the guest image, can communicate with other virtual machines and also with the host operating system, in this case Windows, but cannot be reached by the network or internet. NAT is a network address translation protocol. So this basically is putting your box behind a gateway, so that basically it can reach internet but cannot be reached directly. And so basically in this case, it is going to be connecting through the host network. In this case, through our Windows operating system. It's going to be using our Windows host as the gateway to reach internet. And finally, the bridged. Bridged is like you have your virtual machine in the same network. It's like if someone is in the same network and try to connect you to your machine, they will be able to reach it, and they don't even notice it is a virtual machine behind. So this is pretty cool when dealing with penetration testing efforts where you need the victims or the machines being tested to connect back to you. That's the way you need to go. Bridge can help you to, for example, something called reverse shells, that they need a real IP to connect back and give access to the penetration tester to the machine being tested. Bridge is gonna be the way to go, because for example, if you use NAT, when the victim machine is trying to connect back to you, they won't be able to reach you because you are behind a gateway. Keep in mind that. So you will need kind of other setup of configuration, which is difficult. So just keep in mind, bridge is like if you are in the network with your own IP. NAT is you are behind a gateway, and host, you have not connection to others computers in the network. With that being said, I mean, we have many other options, but that's the most important one. We're gonna be using here NAT, and I would recommend host only if you are doing malware analysis, any malicious sample. That way you don't affect other networks. But let's start using NAT so that we can have internet access and not exposed and not be reached directly by other hosts. We click here in power on this virtual machine. As usual, you will get VMware running, and it's a little bit slow. And well, but basically here you will have two options. Recovery mode is basically when something is going wrong, the hard disk was damaged and you need to fix it. You will go here, you will enter your root password, and you know, this is more like for Linux system administrators. If you know how to play with hard disk, how to fix issues in your OS, you need to get there if there is any problem. And this is the default one, so we'll just gonna enter right there. Once you enter, the Kali is gonna start booting. By the way, Kali is based on Debian or Debian. I don't know how to pronounce it. What that means is that the way that you install software in Debian, the way you configure Debian to access internet, to the way you configure Debian to manage the different services, is gonna be the same way you're gonna be doing it here in Kali. And I'm gonna show you all those different options in a different lab. So this is the way it is booting, and we are gonna get our prompt in a second. And once we get the prompt, we will need to enter our username. I created a couple of usernames already, but let's enter with root, so that that's the one that you guys are gonna get at the beginning. So I enter, you get access, you have the prompt of the logo, really cool logo of Kali Linux. When you want to switch between VMware and the host, if you click right here in the screen, you will have access, you see, to the host. And if you want to release the mouse in order to get access to your host operating system, you just click Ctrl Alt and you get out of this host, so you can reach other menus outside. As you can see, again, you want to get back, you just click right into the screen and you are inside again. And here you can click Ctrl Alt Enter to get full screen. If you don't get the full screen, you need to install VMware Tools, which is another option in the menu. It is called right here. In my install VMware Tools. In your case, it's gonna say install VMware Tools. That's basically helping you to be able to get full screen, also be able to transfer files to your virtual machine, or to do copy paste text into the clipboard easily. So that's pretty useful, because let's say that you have here, by the way, I just entered the terminal, and let's say that you are here, and let's get out of this. I'm just gonna open Notepad quickly, and let's say that you need to paste a really big chunk of code, whatever it is, right? And you wanna copy any specific test outside your virtual machine. You just right click, copy, and when you get into your machine and you just right click and paste, you can see that you can get that. That's pretty useful, because sometimes you need to share information with other friends in that they don't have access to the virtual machine. Sometimes you find something in the host in a specific page that you want to share inside. So sometimes if you don't have VMware Tools enabled, that's gonna be a problem. And as you can see, this is pretty helpful. And here I just opened the terminal. As you can see, you can find it right at the top. Also, you can find here in the applications all the access to the different options. Here in Kali Linux, you have all the arsenal of tools, as you can see right there. We're going to talk about that in a second. And the first thing you need to do when you get access to the Kali is you need to change the password. As you remember, the password is store, so you don't want anyone to reach your Kali Linux system and get access to your host. So you just do passwd, enter, and then you will just enter your new password. Anything that you want to put there. Obviously, it's recommended strong password, which can be like 16 characters long, and alphanumeric with special chars, and it's gonna say password updated successful, and that's very important because it's your root password, right? And finally, as you notice, I changed. Well, I'm gonna talk about in the next lab. So you are inside. This is your Kali, and you're ready to go. Hey guys, so we are here in the second part of this Kali labs. As I said, it's just basic stuff to get you guys ready to use it. And right now, I'm gonna explain you just the next steps right after you start running Kali. So the first thing that you might wanna do is configure your system. In my case, I just changed the desktop background. You just right click here. This kind of things is not related to Kali, but still I'm gonna just mention it quickly. You click here in the plus sign. Here you can go to your file system and find your any picture you want, select it, and then you will get the background changed. Also, you can see that I have here the terminal right here. You can access it. In the terminal, as you notice, I changed the host. You see, it's the CSTT. You can also print the host name as like this, and you want to change it. You just go to etc host name, and you just put the name right there. Reboot the machine, and you will get it. Connectivity is very important. The first thing you need to know is you have access to internet, so you need to do ifconfig. That's gonna print out the content of your configuration. And normally here Kali is very good recognizing multiple drivers, so usually you won't have any problems unless you have a weird configuration with weird credit cards. Probably Kali is not gonna be able to identify it, but here so far we can see the IP address that got assigned to us. That IP address is very important to notice that is coming from a DHCP server. If you are working from home and you have your Wi-Fi provider, it already have DHCP enabled, so you just need to request IP and you will get it. How do you request IP? So let's say that I'm gonna take down that specific interface. So we don't have anything right now. So I'm just gonna use the DH client, which is the HTTP. You can see in the right side we got disconnected. So we just do DH client, the interface, and if we do ifconfig, you can see that we got the IP. Okay, so that's very important. By doing this, you don't need to configure anything else. The next step that you need to do is just you need to ping something outside to see if you're getting connection. You can see that you're getting 65 bytes response, so we are fine. Another important point here is that sometimes I highly recommend you to also ping IPs, because sometimes you will have internet access but not DNS resolution. So if you, for example, do a ping with an IP address, you can see that you get a response. But let's say that I'm going to access the DNS configuration, which is right here, and I'm just going to comment out the name server like this. If I ping Yahoo, you can see it says unknown host, but if I ping the IP, you can see that I'm still getting response. That's a pretty common mistake, that when we are trying to ping domain names and we see that we don't have response, we think that we don't have connection, we don't have any internet access, and that's not true. As you can see, we have communication, but we don't have DNS resolution. So as you saw, I just need to go to resolve, and in this case I enable the default one, which actually was added by the DHCP server when I executed the DH client. But a quick trick also here is that sometimes our name service doesn't work, so you can use Google ones if you don't mind going through Google traffic. It's up to you, which is 8888. You just save it, and you can see that if we do a ping, we get again access. Okay, just gonna revert it back to the one that I had, and that's it. So we have configuration. If for some reason when you do if config you don't get any interface, that's a troubleshooting, is out of scope, but I recommend you to go to Kali forums. They have multiple support there. It's not our scope to fix those issues. We are assuming everything's up and running. What is next? The next thing is that you need to know what is running in your Kali Linux. Some of the time there are multiple services running. If you do lsoft-e TCP, you can see what it is running right now. We can see that we have Apache and MySQL. Okay, MySQL is the database, Apache is the web server, and this is very important. This because probably you're running services that you don't know, and probably you don't need them to be running. Like Apache, if you don't have a web server in Kali, you don't need to run it. The way you manage those services is by using the service command, which I'm going to show you in a second. The second option is you can go to Kali Linux system services, and here you have the services that are running or can be run, and you just click on them to restart, start, stop. The same for all of them. HTTP for the web server, Metasploit for the framework, exploitation framework, MySQL for the database, OpenBus, SSH, remote access. But sometimes it's boring for us to go to the menu all the time, so you can just quickly here say service, and then in this case Apache. By the way, if you click Apache and then you click the tab, it's gonna complete the command, which is pretty useful because it's gonna identify the service you're referring to if you don't remember the name. That's pretty cool. And then you say stop in this case, and then if we run our lsoft command again, trying to see which services are running in this specifically, we can see that we don't have Apache anymore. Okay, the same we can do with MySQL, and we can also obviously start Apache again. So that way you can use service in the command prompt to start stop services, and you don't need to do it through the menu. Since we're talking about Apache, let's talk about the configuration quickly of this guy. Again, we are not system administrators. We are not here to teach you how to configure Apache, MySQL. Those are out of scope of our academy. But definitely, we just want you to know where you can find those configuration files within Kali. Apache is found here in Apache 2, and here is the whole configuration as usual. Apache.conf, Apache2.conf has all the configuration from Apache. You know, if you have multiple servers, the log file, timeouts, I mean, all the configuration from Apache, HT access, anything. And also here inside enable is what you want to look at. That's pretty useful, because here is where you will have all the exercises. You can have here your own exercises loaded in your web server. So if you open enable 000 default, you can see that the document root is in var ww. But if this is changed, you will always find here what is the root folder of your web server. In this case, it's var www. So let's go there. Here, you can see that we have already our CSTT folder. So if we go there, you can put here any directories and files, and those are going to be reflected in your web server. So I just created here the Hola HTML, which is just hey there. So if we open our browser, in Kali they use this specific browser, which is it's called Ice Whistle, which is basically a Firefox version. And here, if we paste our IP address, oh, this is not our IP address, let's grab it. So we have here our IP address and slash hola.html. Oh, it's not this. Let's see. Oh yeah, hola.html. Oh, sorry, we missed our folder CSTT. So you can see that we have access of our information. That's pretty useful, because you can see that we can always load our exploits or anything that you are testing a web application. That's the way to go. Okay, so that's Apache. Let's talk about SSH. Well, SSH, everything is under SSH. Here you have everything. SSHD is to get access. SSHD, sorry. SSHD is to get access to your own HTTP configuration. And SSH without D has access to SSH client. So here you can configure whatever you have in your SSHD server. That's pretty much it. The way you test it is just obviously to do SSH localhost, and it says refused, because if you remember, we don't have SSHD running. So we do again a service SSH start. Now we can do else. We can see it is running now. SSHD. And finally, we do SSH to localhost, and we might need, sorry, we should receive this kind of response like, hey, this is a new host, do you want to add it? You say yes, and you get the prompt. If you don't get this, there is a problem, and you might need to reconfigure the server, but hopefully it's not. Finally, MySQL, the way you access it is with MySQL-h localhost. By the way, let me tell you something quickly. In Kali, you already have MySQL. You can see here is listening in localhost, which is totally recommended. You don't want your database to be using the IP address, and therefore can be reached outside Kali. We are just using it locally. So here is listening locally, which is as expected. So you just need to do MySQL -h localhost, and you should be fine. We get access. You can do something like use MySQL. This is out of scope, but just want to show you. Show tables. You will have the default tables configured in MySQL. Description of user, everything related to sysadmin. So again, if this is pretty useful, because sometimes you need to access MySQL because you want to add a new server, or you need to add a new application that requires a specific database. So that's the way to go. With MySQL, usually the password is Tor, T-O-O-R, and here you can use -p in case you have another password, and it's gonna prompt you for the password in case you change the password for root, or if it is Tor, so you can enter it. Or you can also, if you added another user, like in my case, I added another user, you can say -u, the user, and -p to prompt for the password, and then you enter the password for that user, and you get access with that user. That's just another way to go. So I think that's all. Again, if you want to change the password for root or any other user, you use passwd. You will need to enter a new password. I am using root right now because all those options that I'm showing you, all those options are only executed by root, but it is highly recommended to use a user, a default user for you. So you just do add user test, and it will ask you for a password. Anything you want to write here, you say yes, and it is added. So the way you know it is added, you can just cut etc passwd and grab this test. You can see that it is already added there. And so if you want to remove it, you just do tell user test, and it is removed. So we do cut again, we don't find it. And when you remove a user, you need to also remove manually the home folder, and that's it. Finally, in etc passwd, you might want to go and do a search for bash. Bash means that those specific users have access. You can see here we have Defender and Linux, they have bash, but sometimes, and especially Kali, I saw that it has many other users with bash. I don't recall, but I remember that probably, let's say that MySQL user right here, if he has this bash, that means MySQL can get access to your box with a shell. That's not recommended. So make sure to have all of them false, just root and your users with a bin bash. Everyone else being false. That's pretty much it in terms of quick configuration, guys. Hope you enjoy it. Vulnerability analysis is more scanning, like Cisco. If you have any Cisco routers, you can use these tools to scan those routers. Database related scanners for SQL Server, for MySQL. We have the really cool tools like SQL Map, SQL Ninja. Those ones, once you found a vulnerability in a web server that it is related to SQL injection, you can just automate the process to get access to the server or to dump the database. So those are pretty cool tools. We're gonna be using them. Fuzzing tools, fuzzers that you can use to find vulnerabilities, can be Spike. It's pretty cool, Spike. It is more related to find vulnerabilities in applications. It supports plain text and binary protocols. It's pretty powerful. We have MIS scanners. Again, as you see here, is Nmap again. It's repeated. NIC2 is for web servers. I mean, this is kind of, you know, multiple sections, and they repeat some of the tools. Open source assessments. Maltego is pretty cool. This is an application. I'm just gonna click on it. Maltego is pretty cool for threat intelligence. So basically, and actually it's a licensed. You need a license to use it, but they provide limited license for us that you just need to register, and I think they give you 30 days and you can use it. But basically what it does is, if you're trying to find, let's say in the IPT, advanced persistent threat kind of research, that we have a certification about that, by the way. If you want to know who are the threat actors behind, probably you find a username or you find an email password. Maltego, if you provide that information, he's gonna try to find all the IPs related to that username and all the hosts that were registered by that name or related name. It's gonna give you all the IPs, and then basically it's gonna provide a map of all information related to that user. If you provide an IP, it's the same. It's gonna say, okay, this IP was open, but it's also related to these other IPs, and eventually to this specific host and to this specific user. So it's pretty cool to find the whole picture about a specific person or a specific asset in the network. As I said, you need to register, and eventually you will get access to this tool, but I'm not gonna do anything here. Investigate, you know, when you start trying to add information. You can see here, you can add parents, you can add children. That's all related to the nodes where you are dealing with a research, when you're trying to find specific persons, IPs, hosts, servers. And again, coming back to our set of tools. Okay guys, so we've quickly understood how Kali is installed, how it is configured, the services that are running, but basically Kali is powerful in terms of the applications running. As I mentioned, it is for penetration testers so that they can have a repository of multiple tools. And I'm gonna just quickly show you an overview of those tools. Don't worry, most of the tools, I'm not gonna say all of them, but many of the tools are gonna be taught during all of our cybersecurity think tank academy trainings. So depends on the one that you are taking. If you go to applications and then to Kali Linux, you can see here all the different applications and tools that are available. All are separated based on penetration testing effort phase. That means that obviously the first step, for example, is information gathering. That's why you can see here all the tools related to information gathering. That's all related to gather information about the host of the network available, what kind of host they are, if there are routers, switches, if there are Windows, Linux, SNMP servers, all related to the kind of assets to be tested is this specific section. So you can see multiple tools around here. DNS analysis. As I said before, probably you just use DNS walk, but probably when you come here, you realize that there are many other tools that you can always use. Many of the tools are repeated in other sections. Like here you can see Nmap as information gathering, but Nmap can also be used during vulnerability analysis. You know, it's very common. Maltego is pretty cool. This is an application. I'm just gonna click on it. Maltego is pretty cool for threat intelligence. So basically, and actually it's a license. You need a license to use it, but they provide limited license for us that you just need to register, and I think they give you 30 days and you can use it. But basically what it does is, if you're trying to find, let's say in the IPT, advanced persistent threat kind of research, that we have a certification about that, by the way. If you want to know who are the threat actors behind, probably you find a username or you find an email password. Maltego, if you provide that information, he's gonna try to find all the IPs related to that username and all the hosts that were registered by that name or related name. It's gonna give you all the IPs, and then basically it's gonna provide a map of all information related to that user. If you provide an IP, it's the same. It's gonna say, okay, this IP was open, but it's also related to these other IPs, and eventually to this specific host and to this specific user. So it's pretty cool to find the whole picture about a specific person or a specific asset in the network. As I said, you need to register, and eventually you will get access to this tool, but I'm not gonna do anything here. Investigate, you know, when you start trying to add information. You can see here, you can add parents, you can add children. That's all related to the nodes where you are dealing with a research, when you're trying to find specific persons, IPs, hosts, servers. I'm going to talk about the top 10, which are these ones, but just want to give you a quick overview. Web applications, again, all related to web applications, fuzzers, crawlers. You have multiple there, vulnerability scanners. There are many, as you can see here, and depending on the scan is the purpose. For example, Burp Suite is just a framework which you can use to intercept requests and response when you're trying to test an application. And actually I have here, open it, Burp Suite. Burp Suite is very powerful. It's gonna allow you to scan hosts. It's gonna allow you to identify the structure of the specific web application. It's gonna list all the directories and resources available. As I said, it's gonna scan it so that you can find multiple vulnerabilities. Cross-site scripting is very common, but many of them. Intruder, which is pretty cool because you can even say, okay, I just want to test this specific parameter in the post request or this other one. So you can narrow this down into a specific parameter that you just want to test and concentrate your efforts, all of them trying to find vulnerabilities. Repeater which is just to resend a request. I mean, multiple options. Again, these kind of tools we're gonna be looking at when we are doing penetration testing on web applications. We have the cybersecurity web application defender. We're gonna be using these kind of tools there. Recommended to attend. That's verb zip. Open it, Burp Suite. Burp Suite is very powerful. It's gonna allow you to scan hosts. It's gonna allow you to identify the structure of the specific web application. It's gonna list all the directories and resources available. As I said, it's gonna scan it so that you can find multiple vulnerabilities. Cross-site scripting is very common, but many of them. Intruder, which is pretty cool because you can even say, okay, I just want to test this specific parameter in the post request or this other one. So you can narrow this down into a specific parameter that you just want to test and concentrate your efforts, all of them trying to find vulnerabilities. Repeater, which is just to resend a request. I mean, multiple options. Again, these kind of tools we're gonna be looking at when we are doing penetration testing on web applications. We have the cybersecurity web application defender. We're gonna be using these kind of tools there. Recommended to attend. That's verb zip. Coming down to the other tools, we have password attacks, which is GPU. It's for GPU enable when you use your video card to do cracking. You have offline attacks where you can use specific tools which can help you to find vulnerabilities. You have off-crack. This is pretty cool for rainbow tables. Basically, it has all. You need to provide the rainbow tables, but there is an interface for you to use it, and basically, it will allow you to crack based on the rainbow tables provided. What is rainbow tables? Well, it is out of scope, but just so that you know, it is a set of compiled tables, gigabytes of hashes already compiled. So basically what it does is it will try to find multiple passwords and what are their hashes related, and when you use rainbow tables, it will just look up for those specific hashes already cracked, and it doesn't need to crack again. So it will help you to find passwords already cracked in faster than just, instead of trying to find combinations, it will have always already pre-calculated hashes of those passwords. I mean, there are multiple tools that we are never end, but I just wanted to give you a quick overview. Armitage, that's pretty awesome. And I just want to show you quickly Armitage. Armitage is it leverage Metasploit. Basically, is for pen testers, and you can imagine, as you can see here, all the hosts in that network that had been identified. So Armitage is going to be using fingerprinting or enumeration tools to list all those hosts. It will use Nmap for port scanning behind the scenes, and then once it has all the hosts identified, you can just right click on those hosts and say, hey, scan it or logging in, give me the services, operating system, and eventually, if it is vulnerable, it is just a right click to get access into that specific host. It will test all the different exploits against those machines based on the services identified that are running. I mean, I don't want to guys to confuse you, but basically this is one of the powerful tools that we are going to learn also in some of our certifications. Here in the left side you can see all the exploits for depending on what you are testing. It's going to give you all the information available for MySQL, for example, if it is SQL Server, what they have available, if it is FreeSBD, if it is Solaris, which is too old, Windows, firewalls, antiviruses, everything that you need depending on the effort that you are doing. So this is an amazing tool, and it's one of the tools that we're going to be learning in other certifications. And finally, the top 10 ones, as I said, this is kinda Kali put most of the well-known used tools. AirCrack is pretty cool for cracking Wi-Fi networks. Nowadays, it's not that successful. Probably 5 years ago was very successful because most of the Wi-Fi's were web enabled, which was a pretty weak protocol, and you can easily find passwords for Wi-Fi networks. Nowadays it's kind of more difficult with WPA protocol, but still possible. Burp Suite, as you saw, is a proxy to the web to find vulnerabilities in web applications. Hydra is pretty cool. This is going to allow you to brute force services to find passwords. As you can see here, you can use a password list, and you can provide the FTP server, SMTP for a web email server, web applications for login credentials, and it's pretty powerful. It's pretty cool, and for password brute forcing. We have here John the Ripper, which is a offline password cracker, pretty useful if you want to find passwords found in your Windows hashes or in your zip, RAR archives, or obviously in Linux passwords, many formats it supports. Valtego, as I said, is for you to identify, to do threat intelligence, to find connections between assets, users, organizations. Metasploit framework, anytime you wanna configure exploits, create your own exploits, or use exploits already for different services is the way to go. Nmap, so just a port scanner, pretty powerful if you want to know which ports are open in specific host. OWASP Zap, that's from OWASP, is similar to Burp Suite, and in my opinion less powerful, but it is open source, and I mean Burp Suite is also open source. It has the licensed version, but in my opinion OWASP Zap is less powerful than Burp, but still it also allows you to do pretty cool scanning, allows you to do interception of request response when trying to test web applications, allows you to do fuzzing too. SQL Map, pretty cool tool when you have a vulnerability in a web application which is SQL injection related. This tool is going to help you to get a remote shell or to dump the content of the database. Wireshark is just a network sniffer for you to analyze packets going on through the network. So these are just quick view of all the tools used available in Kali. Many of them are going to be used through our cybersecurity think tank certifications, so we are going to make sure to mention them so that you know which ones are related to which certifications, and just be ready to play with them.
Hey everybody, welcome back. This is Cyber Training 365. I'm joined with Timber Wolf. He's our lead instructors in our Cyber Training 365 Academy. Today actually we're going to go over how to crack a WEP, a web password for your wireless device basically. Timber is going to first explain you the setup, what exactly is needed to securely do it. You don't want to go and try it on your neighbors, just to let you know. You have to ethically do it, and there's a setup. And if you have forgotten your web key, if you're using a router which uses web as your authentication, so you got to basically use this setup. All right, Timber, all yours.
Okay, hi everyone. So what we've got is we've got a laptop. And we have the wireless router that's actually able to speak WEP. Most of them you buy today cannot speak WEP. WEP is kind of an old technology, and we're actually going to crack it. WPA and WPA2 you do not crack. You're going to have to use a rainbow table and guess the password. So you're basically going to do a lookup, a dictionary lookup. So the way we're going to do the WEP though is we can crack the keys no matter how long they are. With WPA2 and WPA, the longer they are, the harder they are to guess, right? Mm-hmm. But this, it doesn't matter how long it is, we can crack it. So we're going to demonstrate that today, that this is why you don't want to use WEP. So you'll be hard pressed to find a router that supports WEP, but you can find them. You can find them on the shelf at Best Buy, and you can get them off of Amazon. And then we're also going to use this alpha card. So you can see the blue light on. We're running in Kali. You can see my screen here in a second. We'll show you. I don't know if you can see the model number, but we'll publish it. I've been assured that you'll be able to see the model number. This card is good because it'll speak 150 megabits per second, so you can use it for other stuff too. It's stronger, the antenna is stronger than your laptop is typically, so you might be able to use it for multiple things. We're going to explain the difference between this and the WPA and WPA2. We may do a follow-on for the WPA2 and WPA, and then, but we want to demonstrate the WEP first. So some of the classes you're going to take, you're going to be asked these kinds of questions, and you need to be able to demonstrate this. So
mainly there is once you mentioned the classes, there is a class which Timber is teaching in A+, where he goes around and talks about wireless access points. And then I have a class which about penetration testing, and where there's a full course on wireless penetration testing. So this particular blog will be very useful for you when it comes down to even cracking your web. And then we'll do a follow-up for WPA and WPA2.
And if you're overseas, you're likely to have this gear because they don't recycle the gear as often as we do in America. So they don't update their technology as much, which means you don't need to buy new gear. This router will last 100 years. If the technology doesn't change, you'll keep using the same router. If you had a web key 100 years ago, you may not change it. So this will also demonstrate that if you have it, if your grandma has it, you need to go and change it because you don't want to leave that. Okay, so we also have some Thunderbolt connectors for the networking interfaces here, but all you really need is this alpha card and the belt and a router serving up WEP that you can reach. Okay, so you ready to dive in?
Yep, let's do it.
Oh, we're also going to need a cell phone because we have to have a connection to the wireless router. Otherwise, we can't get it. So we're going to demonstrate that in a few minutes. So 3 things you need. You need 4 things. You need a laptop, router, alpha card. To work with Kali, you need a specific version, so that's important. These are about $34, $35 on Amazon. I'll show you one with the model number. And then we're going to need anything that can connect to the wireless router using WEP.
All right.
So this is a modern cell phone. A modern cell phone will connect to WEP, but the new routers will not serve it.
All right.
Okay, let's dive in.
All right, perfect. Let's go.
Okay, so what we've got here on the screen is we've got Kali Linux running here, and we have the alpha card here. This is the model number of the one we're using right now, and you can see that they're $34 on Amazon. They've been $34 for a long, long time. Now let's take a look at the Belkin configuration. This is their configuration screen. And what I did was I just connected to it earlier over my wireless, and it gave me this screen, right? So the information we want to know is, I previously set, as part of setting up this lab, I just set a 2.4 gigahertz key right here. So it's 42B8636F96, which you've already put in your phone,
I
right?
already put that, yeah.
So he's going to connect to it, and we need those connections so that we can kick him off or just watch him reloading data natively. We'll discuss that in a minute. But he's going to have to connect, and then we'll see him connecting in a minute. So these are the actual instructions that you're going to do for this particular router. And here's the card number, Alpha AWUSO36NHA. And this is the key we're using on our router. This is the wireless key that we're going to try and crack and find. And these are the commands we're going to use. So we're going to use airmon, and then we're going to use aircrack. And all of this is part of a Kismet suite. So let's dive into Kali. So this is just basically Kali booted up. I've got it in a VM running on my OS X. It's running in Fusion 5. And so I'm just going to clear my screen. And we're just going to type in these commands down here. So the very first thing you want to do is you do airmon ng. So that kind of sets up the cards, a little bit of overhead. And then we're going to type airmon ng again. Mon 0, that's just the first monitoring interface. And then we're going to do, so we need to do start. Start, yeah, airmon 0 start. Oops, start, airmon, mon 0. There we go, so it started. And then now we're going to do arrow dump. Ng, and then we're going to do mon 0, our first interface, right? Because we can do more than one.
Mm-hmm.
Why did I miss that?
I think so. There's one step for WLAN.
Start WLAN 0. Okay, now we have it. And then we're going to do arrow dump ng mon 0.
There it is.
Okay, so now what we see is all of the access points that we can see in our range. And you can also see that it's WPA, CCMP. It tells you a lot of information, but the one we're looking for is WEP. If you can find a WEP one, you can crack it very quickly. But note that for the WPA2, the same steps will work. And then we have the ESSID, which is abbreviated. And we have the BSSID, which is the MAC address. So they have the ESSID and the BSSID. So when you're walking through these steps, don't mix those up. We also want to pay attention to the channel. The one we're going to be using is on channel 4. Okay?
All right.
So let's go ahead and we're going to go to the next tab. I'm going to go ahead and stop this, but we're going to leave it open because we need to see this information. So I've already copied the key into memory, but what I'm going to do is edit copy here. And I note that we're on channel 4, and then we're WEP, and the ESSID is Belki, B-E-L-K-I. So now we're going to want to do
So you're going to start arrow dump, right?
arrow dump ng-w, don't connect or anything yet.
Okay.
W is for write. We're going to name the file Belki, and then we're going to specify channel 4, BSSID. That's a dash dash, by the way, don't miss that. Then we're going to do an edit paste for the MAC address. And then mon 0. Okay, so now we're capturing frames, and you see Bali's talking to it because we're seeing frames go over.
Mm-hmm.
So you actually have 2 connections to it. Oh, no, no, let's see.
This should be
Stations.
one, yeah.
No, mine is also talking
Okay,
to it.
so
I
you
set
have
up
2
my
cell
phone.
phones, yeah.
Yeah, I set up my phone earlier. So let's start hitting it, Bali. Just start
All right.
reloading the page.
All right.
There is a command that you can specify that will send packets to it automatically if you want to speed it up, but we're only going to need 20,000. So when we get to 20,000 frames collectively, we're good. So we're just reloading this main page.
Yeah, just hitting refresh. That's all I'm doing.
Yeah, we're just hitting refresh. Same for me. And we need to get to where we're at 20,000. Actually, let's run it up to 30 just in case.
All right.
Now mine's really short, this password. If you had a really long one, you might have to go up to 100,000, but it's not likely. I've never had to go over 50, no matter how long they are. And I've tested some really long ones, really long keys, 128-bit keys.
So basically, the goal here is, like, wherever you see a router which is using WEP, you need to make sure, first of all, upgrade to WPA, right? This is upgrading your hardware, right?
Right.
For companies for whom it's important. And otherwise, the bad guys can definitely come in and crack your password if it is...
Well, they don't crack it, okay? Cracking is a specific thing. They're going to basically they're going to guess your password.
For WEP?
For WEP, you crack.
Yeah, for WEP.
Yeah, for WEP, you crack. But for WPA, I thought you were talking about WPA.
Oh, no, I was saying
Those you look up.
if you have WEP, then you need to upgrade to WPA.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so look, we've reached 22,000 plus on one of them and 13,000 on the other. So we have about 30,000.
Yeah.
Close to it.
All right,
All you
cool.
need is over 20.
Cool.
So I'm going to go ahead and clear. Oops. I'm going to go ahead and wipe. Okay. So now we're going to go ahead and stop this. So I'm going to hit Control-C again, and I'm going to do an LS. And then you can see the Belkey 01 caps and everything there.
So that's
all
the
of
file
this.
where all the data
This is the stuff we've collected right here.
There
okay?
you go. Mm-hmm.
So let's clear that. And what we're going to do now is we're going to go ahead and run aircrack. Aircrack NG, and we're going to do XYZ on the capture file. So ours a Belkey, because that's the name we gave it. 01 cap. That's the captured file, the captured data. And then it's running it, it's running it, it's running it. Ooh, it's taking a little while. Failed, so it failed. So we need to try and capture more data. So maybe we didn't get enough off of one connection. So
Maybe,
let's go try it again.
Let's do like one connection with
20,000.
With 20,000, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, let me do that.
Just keep reloading.
Yeah.
Run it up to 30. We were just shy of 30. Maybe we need 30 for this key.
Yeah, it takes like a minute or so, but this kind of gives you a very good
And
test.
again, this simulates real interaction with the router, or a real user. We can keep kicking him off or sending packets to it to get those IVs, or what I call initialization vectors. And then the aircrack is going to take advantage of the weak, the flaw in the actual encryption, and we're going to crack it. So it doesn't matter what key, how long, that's irrelevant. What does matter is that we need, for WPA, is that we're going to guess it. We're going to look it up. And that's why you want it long, because the longer it is, the higher the entropy, and the harder it is, the longer it takes for us to guess it. Not harder, it's just longer. Okay, you're at 20,000 frames now. Let me just draw a little thing to illustrate what we're watching here. We're watching that number right there, that 22,000 number.
So guys, it takes like a couple of minutes if you're doing on a single test like this. So
Yeah, it's okay.
so
It's
just be
still
patient.
fast.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
It's a lot faster than the WPA. The WPA will take you a day to do. But basically, you sit on their network for just a couple of
Very
seconds.
good.
Okay, so we've got 30. We're going to go ahead and stop it. So you sit on their network for a couple of seconds, and then you go home and you work on the password. But with the WEP, you don't even need to do that. So let's go ahead, and we're probably going to be looking at Belkey 2 here. So see, we have a second capture file now, so I'm going to highlight that
the
one.
new one.
Specifically this one right here. That's the one we're after. So let me clear that, and we're going to say air crack. And then we're going to do...
And aircrack is part of the Kismet suite, right?
Yeah, I forget which is exactly which, but it all comes in Kali, so
right,
you don't need to worry about that. It's all there. So we're going to do 02 cap. And there it is. It found the key.
All right.
So is that the one that we used?
Yep.
Let's see if it matches. 42B8636F96.
It is.
So let me
that
just
was
highlight it.
super fast. Yeah.
Yeah. So this is the key right here. And let me just circle it so you can make it very clear. So it says key found right here, decrypted correctly 100% right below that, right? So that's it.
All right, cool. And so this key is it like ASCII, or is it like this? That's what the password was.
That's not, well, it is ASCII because it's a hex number.
Yeah.
So it is a hexadecimal number that you're going to get for the WEP key. It's a hex number.
All right.
So your WPA, WPA2 could be a hex number too, or a word, or whatever. They're alphanumeric characters for WPA, WPA2 because it's a passphrase.
All right. Perfect.
Okay.
Also, one thing to know is when you're trying to do something like this, don't try it in your office or home network. Try it in a contained environment because this can lead you in trouble also.
Yeah, you need permission, remember, for network security assessments and penetration testing. You need permission to touch that other person's network. Even if you're overseas these days, you need to have permission. Most people want to help, so you get a lot of people pen testing your stuff, and you'll say, well, okay, I'll take the information you gave me, but you have to be careful. So they may, if something happened and you were pen testing at the same time, you may get blamed for it. So make sure you're taking screen captures and logging all of your data when you're doing real pen testing.
Yeah.
But when you're messing around like this and playing, this is why you don't want to do that, because there could be a real breach going on while you're doing that. And then they discover it because you tripped the alarm, and now all of a sudden they discover the breach. This is common, and now you're in trouble for it. So don't mess around.
All right, that's a key thing to remember. All right, Timber, thank you for walking us through how to crack your web key. And I think so we will have another follow-up blog post where we'll talk about WAP and WAP2 and how to basically use
rainbow
tables to get
pre-computed hashes, hashes, and we'll guess them with the initialization vector. So we'll go over that, how it works. It's very similar to this, but it takes a lot longer to run. You may have to let it run overnight or for a couple of days. Okay. And you need to download a word list to go along with it, a dictionary.
All right, cool. So, all right, thanks for joining us, guys, and do send us your feedback and any interesting topics you want to listen up in the coming blog posts. All right, see you.